National carrier South African Airways has a new CEO. Cabinet has approved the appointment of Mon-wabisi Kalawe. The details of Kalawe's employment contract are still being discussed. He's currently the executive chairman of the Compass Group, a global catering and support services company.
Huge interest in the new appointment, but the man himself was not part of the announcement. Enterprises Minister Mon-wabisi Kalawe spoke highly of the new appointment, explaining he's still at his current place of employment. Kalawe has a background in engineering. He acquired an MBA in 1998, but it's still unclear when exactly he'll take over at SAA.
We shall be engaging with him. Obviously, he has a notice period, and he will obviously need to serve that notice at his current employer. And after that, he will be able to come and start.
Kalawe received South African Airways' draft turnaround strategy from an appointed task team on the 2nd of April. The strategy seeks to ensure the long-term profitability of the airline.
The department is currently reviewing it and will include all stakeholder departments in view of the fact that SAA is a strategic national carrier before we table it to cabinet.
Meanwhile, the airline says it made cost savings of close to 800 million rand in the past financial year. Nomphumela Losiziba, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Earlier, I spoke with Public Enterprises Minister Mon-wabisi Kalawe about the appointment. I began by asking the minister why the board motivated for an external person when they have capable executives like Nico Besaidenote, who's been running things in the interim.
Their mandate was not to find somebody internal. Their mandate was to find the best candidate to lead South African Airways, to lead the turnaround strategy, to align with the stakeholders and ensure that we are able to arrest the financial problems of the airline, turn the airline around, ensure that it becomes commercially sustainable. So they had to look. They cast the net wide. They had to look for a business leader and a turnaround strategist who was going to fulfill that mandate. And that is why, in so doing, they didn't even confine themselves to South Africa. They looked even abroad. And having done all of that, they came back with the decision that Mr. Kalawe was the best candidate for the job.
Let's talk about the new appointment, because there's been some criticism that the newly appointed CEO doesn't have enough aviation experience. What's your reaction to that?
The issue that you should have been in the sector is actually is neither here nor there. What we need is a serious business leader. And in actual fact, the new CEO is not going to come into SAA and work alone. He will come in and find a team of specialists in the sector who are going to support him. He will have to build a team that's going to assist him to achieve the mandate which we have set for him.
Let's talk about the turnaround document that you've been given by your team. When will that be made public, and more especially, when can we expect to see it implemented?
We are now in the process of consulting with our cabinet colleagues. It will go to cabinet in about a fortnight for cabinet to discuss it and express its approval for the strategy. But we are already living the strategy. Elements of the strategy are already being implemented, because much as it is a 20-year strategy, it has short-term objectives, it has medium-term objectives, and insofar as the short-term objectives are concerned, we need to start implementing those, because SAA doesn't have the luxury to sit and wait until a fortnight to begin to implement the strategy. We need to begin to deal with the financial and other business development challenges and strategies which the airline is facing.
Now, Minister, strategy is one thing, but how will you ensure that the implementation is done and that it's done correctly?
The appointment of the CEO is a critical milestone towards the implementation of the strategy. One of the highlights of this strategy is that it has been developed largely by internal resources. It's been driven by the board and by the executives of SAA. We received over 500 inputs from the employees of SAA in developing the strategy. So it is a strategy that is pretty much owned by the employees of the company, and we are going to ensure through the board processes and the new CEO that we implement the strategy and turn the airline
Minister,
around.
when you received this turnaround strategy, you said that there's no plan B. This is it. It has to work. Is that an indication from you that there'll no longer be any bailouts for the national carrier?
The issue of the strategy is not really about the bailouts. The issue is about getting the airline on a proper footing. I'm not going to mince my words. I will not tolerate any failure in implementing this strategy. As I have said before, there is no plan B for this strategy. They've got to get it right this time around, because I think the people of South Africa are impatient with all the inefficiencies that they have seen in the past in the airline. And South Africans are very passionate about SAA as their flag bearer and would want to see the airline succeeding commercially and in terms of fulfilling its objectives. So as the shareholder, I'm going to be very, very hard in demanding that the board does its work and that the executives implement this strategy to success.
That was Public Enterprises Minister Malusi Gigaba. Boston in the U.S. remains in lockdown today as police continue their manhunt for a 19-year-old suspect in the Boston Marathon bombings. This follows a bloody night of shooting and explosions during